Hello and welcome. The Adrian Dominican Sisters welcome you to a presentation of a sister story. I am Sister Peg O'Flynn, and today I am delighted to be able to have a conversation with our Sister Lois Paha. Some of you may know her as Sister Pauline Joseph. So, but we're going to name her Lois for this time. And she's coming to us from Tucson, Arizona. So, Sister Lois, welcome, and thank you for saying yes so willingly. And then the message got lost in the pile of life. I loved that expression. It's like I'm knocking at your door a second and third time. Okay, now, Sister Lois, the beginnings. I always get a feeling I want to start these stories with that song, Getting to Know You, Getting to Know, da, 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 because that's basically what I want to know, to go deeper, just to know more about you. I guess I didn't realize you came from such a large family. So, okay.
Well, thank you, Peg. I'm delighted to be here. And it's true, when you first invited me to consider this, I thought, oh, great idea. And then that thought got lost among life. And when you called again, I said, all right, it's time, do it. But yes, I am a Chicagoan, born on the South Side from a large family. We were 8 children, but both my parents came from large families too. We lived in the Bohemian and German neighborhoods on the South Side of Chicago. And most of my extended family was in that area too. So we always got together with cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents and so on. So that was a lot of fun. I started out there at attending the grade school that my father went to, St. Augustine's, there on the South Side.
Wow.
And then later on, when I was 9 years old, we moved to the further southwest side where St. Denis Parish was located. And St. Denis was one of those new parishes in some of the growing, expanding neighborhoods on that south side. And that's where I first met the Adrian Dominicans. I was in 5th grade when I met them.
Very good. Now tell us more about your family. You're the oldest or second oldest?
I'm the second of 8. I have 2 sisters and 5 brothers. Oh. And when I was 13 in 8th grade, my mother announced that we would have another baby. That would be number 7. It would have been number 7. But she surprised us with 2, learning a month before they were born that there were fraternal twins on the horizon, 2 boys. So some of the sisters will remember me talking about my baby brothers, who are now a lot older, thanks be to God.
Yeah, why do we always do that? Our younger brothers are my baby.
Yeah, baby brothers, yeah. So babysitting was my full-time job most of the time through my high school years. My father was a union electrician, and so that was a strong element in our family. And my mother handled all the household chores. My dad was a bit of a gardener. We would have onions and spinach and lettuce growing in the backyard in the summer. We weren't a wealthy family, but we were very happy and had lots of extended family in the area to have fun with.
And that's where you nurtured your disposition. You're happy. Miss Sister Happiness.
Sister, always. Well, I watched my older sister get in trouble. And every time she got in trouble, I said, whoops, I'm stepping back. I'm not doing that.
Now, just remember, your sister, your family members can see this story. So,
well, my sister's watching from heaven.
Oh, that's right.
My sister's gone, and my 2 brothers have passed away also. So my younger brother, one of those baby brothers, called me the patriarch. And he said, you're in charge. I said, we're all in charge.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So there are 4, I have 4 living siblings yet.
So you got toughened up with all those brothers.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
They were a lot of fun.
So further on in your education, you must have come across the Adrian Dominican Sisters. How did you get to know us?
Well, I did. At St. Denis, I was in the first 5th grade class there when the school opened. And it was a very large neighborhood of young children. And so the upper grades were only one of a class, but the lower grades were 2 and 3 groups of classes. Sister Marie Grazia was my 5th grade teacher.
Okay.
And she was a musician. And she recognized that I could play the piano a little bit.
Oh,
so
okay.
she taught me actually to play the organ for benediction. I thought, wow. Yeah, well, that's about as far as it went. but I was a pretty good singer, and I loved music, and she was nurtured me in that. Sister Una Disi was my 8th grade teacher.
Okay.
And then Sister Marie Godsell was on the faculty there at St. Denis, and she became my sponsor. And when I was a sophomore in high school, she invited me to come to Adrian for one of the novice group receptions.
Oh, that was good.
That was really, they knew I was interested in being a sister. And later I learned.
Very early on, you said.
Yes, from the time I was in 1st grade, I wanted to be a nun. But
Why?
I don't know if I wanted to be a teacher or a nun, because nuns were teachers. But I loved the nuns, and I would play school with my little brothers and put a dish towel on my head, that's what the nuns did. I mean, they were nuns. So, but Marie Godsell and my mother colluded to send me to the academy, which I didn't know, but it closed the year I would have been a freshman. So I was able to, I didn't go to Aquinas because it was a little too far away. So I went to the Academy of Our Lady, which was the Notre Dame Sisters, and did high school there. There was a little bit of competition because they were always recruiting the high school girls, and the Adrians were recruiting me. So I gave in to the Adrians.
Very good.
The gift I saw that they had was the joy.
Isn't that something? Everyone says that. That is such a blessing. Yeah.
Well, at the time, St. Denis School was built. The upper grades were on the 3rd floor on one half of the hall. The other classrooms on the other side were the convent. Okay. We started with 6 sisters, and by the time they actually built the real convent, there were 17 sisters living in the 4 classroom space. We had a lot of fun laughing about that. But
was it a high school? Was it a high school as well?
No, St. Denis was the grade school.
And then the grade school.
Academy of Our Lady Longwood was the high school. Yeah.
Because we didn't have lay teachers at that time, did we? We
Not
never had them
many.
in school.
There were 1 or 2, but that was, I graduated grade school in 57. So we would have still had a lot of sisters on the faculty. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this desire to be a nun has been within you for a long time.
Well, and in my neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, we lived a half a block away from a Poor Clare monastery. And I would have to walk past it to go to school, but my mother would also take us over there to visit the chapel, and I would hear the nuns singing. I don't think I ever saw a nun at the monastery of the Poor Clares, but we would visit the grottos, and I would hear them singing. I kind of fell in love with prayer books early on. I was more interested in my First Communion prayer book than I was dress and veil.
Isn't that interesting?
When I was in 7th grade, I asked Santa Claus for a Marian Missal because it was bilingual, Latin and English, and I could follow the Mass better. So when I reflect on my later interest in liturgical studies, it really goes back to my kidhood when I loved going to Mass. So
you are different.
That's all right. I enjoy being different. We could say unique.
So then what was the thing that said, yes, I'm going to enter?
Well, it was Sister Marie Lawrence and some of the other sisters there at St. Denis. I inquired, and I just decided when I was a junior in high school, I did get invited to proms, and I dated some, but I came to a point. It was a parish mission we were having, and I spoke with the priest, and I said, I don't know if I want to get married or be a nun. And he said, well, both are good choices. You have to pick. And I thought, okay, thanks a lot. That was a lot of help. So I did give it some consideration, and coming from a big family, I had a sense of what marriage and family were about. And I never felt a strong pull in that direction. But the teaching, and again, sisters were the teachers, seemed to be more attractive to me. And so I made the decision as a junior in high school that after I graduated, I would enter, because that was the time you could do it. So the last half of my senior year, I got all my stuff together, and my parents drove me to Adrian on June 26th.
That's right. The famous, myself included, yeah, June 26th.
Yeah. So
what did your brothers and sisters think, sister?
Well, because I was among the elders, my older sister was fine with it, and the youngers were like, whatever, they really didn't have much of an opinion about it. And so they just said, oh, she's going to the convent, and that's it. And then I was gone. I don't know if they missed their babysitter, but they never told me if they did.
Maybe they thought they wouldn't need one after you left.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And after my parents died, and there were still young adults, my aunts and uncles said, well, aren't you going to come home and take care of the family? And I said, well, I'll talk to them, but I could get stationed closer to home. But they said, no, we don't want you nearby. We like when you come. It's more of a vacation. I said, oh, okay. They didn't need another mother, basically. They were fine.
Yeah. Large family.
Yeah.
Very large family. And then you go through the grieving as you lose each one. You have to do it more times than not.
It's true. Yeah. It was a long trip. Yeah. A long travel of grieving, but real blessing. I was able to hear people's stories of their parents passing and be able to comfort and assist people. And I think that was another way of my liturgical strength being given. Funerals are really hard sometimes, but to really talk through the prayer of the church and walk with people at those moments are important.
Mm-hmm. Now, your ministry, you were mostly in Michigan.
Yes, my first 20 years was Michigan. Yeah. I did elementary school and administration, 3 years of administration, and then was invited to join the formation team.
That's right.
In Adrian, which was a bit of a surprise. I was like, oh, okay, what does that mean? And Sister Marie Decker was living with me at the time.
Right. Okay.
She was a beautiful woman, and so I said, what do I do? And she said, well, you can say yes or no. What do you want to do? And I said, and I had nothing to base the yes or no on. And so I said, well, I like adventure. Let's try it. So I said yes. And again, that was a wonderful experience of living in Adrian for 4 years and working on the formation team. Teresa Dish and Maria Romero were the first team members I worked with. Yeah.
Very good.
But that also gave me a new opportunity to work with adults more directly in their stories of faith, listening to the women's interest in becoming sister. I had to move out of the elementary education agenda and say, what are adults talking about? What's the faith journey of the adult? And that really got me interested in adult faith formation and areas of ministry in that direction. So when the formation time was completed for me, I didn't go back to elementary education, which could have been a possibility, but I said, what else is out there in terms of adult faith formation? And that's actually what brought me to Arizona. I was hired by a parish to be.
But you studied, did you study at Notre Dame? Is that where you studied?
I did. I actually studied in a couple of places. The first master's degree I had was from St. Michael's College in Winooski, Vermont. And that degree was being offered for people doing high school religion and religious education in parishes. And a couple of our Adrians had gone there. And I had an aunt, my godmother lived in that part of the world.
Oh, nice.
She said, you know, I see nuns at St. Michael's. Why don't you come here? Because she always was after me to visit. So I said, well, let me look at it. And I was able to get into the summer school of religion there.
Good.
And earned my first MA. It was called a Master of Arts in Teaching Religion. So that was the foundation that I brought with me to the parish work in Phoenix in the 80s. And then the liturgy work was more attractive to me because I was the coordinator of volunteers at the parish, and I was always helping the liturgical ministers be better lectors and communion ministers and musicians. And my friend, Sister Joyce Lavoie, was one who noticed my interest in liturgy, especially through cantoring. So that's what opened the door for me to full-time study at the University of Notre Dame.
Wow.
And I used to say that really turned the corner for me, because I got into an area of study that really energized me and I loved, and it was teaching and working with adults.
So you went to Austin first.
Right. I was the full-time worship office director there in Austin, Texas, and worked with Bishop John McCarthy. And he would always remind me, now, sister, my installation liturgy only took 90 minutes, so let's drag this on. You always had to be done. You couldn't go overtime. And so, but he'd always trust what I had prepared, and he'd say, send me in, coach, and off we went.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, he was really a very wonderful leader. Yeah. And then, so that was my primary work. And then when I came to Tucson, the job description was called the Director of Formation. So it included the liturgical work, but it also led me into the work with the permanent deacon formation and lay ecclesial ministry formation.
Wow, okay.
So it was a new adventure out here. There was a team that had started the project before I was hired, and then I was hired as the director. So I always said that first year, it took me from September to May to get my other foot on the train, because it was already running when I got here. But it's been a great opportunity to serve the people here. And Bishop Jerry Kakanis was my bishop boss for a long time, and a good friend of our Chicago sisters. So so I've had good diocesan opportunities, and always had wonderful team members to work with in these projects.
You know, you spent 16 years at the first place in Austin, and then what made you leave there to go to Tucson? Well,
it was, I'd say, a little smidge of boredom and same old. I mean, not really in a negative way, but I was saying, is there anything else out there? Sister Sarah Sharkey and Melba Biney were down in San Antonio.
That's right. Okay.
Right. And Sarah was at the Oblate School of Theology, and I didn't realize I really had a continued interest in learning. And she got me interested in looking at a Doctor of Ministry program there. And I felt like doing the liturgy was wonderful, but the faith formation aspect, I think, had a broader edge that I wanted to push. So I thought, I've done the liturgy now for 16 years. Is there anything else out there? And this job description from the Diocese of Tucson came across my desk, and it was a director of formation, which was more extended and looked like something I'd like to explore. And Sarah and Melba were the only ones there, and I was almost 100 miles away from any other Adrian Dominicans. And I just felt like in Texas, I was a little too isolated. I really wanted to be closer to Adrians. And there were 7 or 8 here in Tucson at the time. and Sister Charlotte Ann Swift was in my mission group. And I said to her one day, and she was Bishop Kakanis' secretary.
So where is she?
She's here still in Tucson, yeah.
Oh, in Tucson.
She's still with us, yeah.
I have to get her to tell her story.
Yeah, she's got a great story. And so I said, is that job still open? And she said, yes, and if you knew you were interested, you'd have it. So that scared me, and I thought, oh boy.
That's good.
Well, about a month later, I got a call on my home phone. Hello, this is Jerry Kakanis. Sister, could we talk about a schedule?
Oh,
I was like, oh my gosh. So I visited with him, and it seemed like the right thing to do to move to Tucson and get involved in the diocesan work.
So that may be something to say, how do you know, how has your journey been the result of the inspiration of the Holy Spirit and your gut?
Yeah, and your gut.
Yeah.
Well, I've always noticed that I get to a point where it seems like it's time to move on. I've always been able to, I've been a strong journal writer for years. And when I was getting restless in Boston, I went back and looked at some of my journals, and I saw myself write more and more. What else is out there? What's next?
Okay.
And it seemed like the Lord and the Spirit were nudging me to see what else was a possibility. Mm-hmm. So, and my dear friend, Sister Dorothy Folliard, she was in Texas when I got there. Right. Yeah. And when I was going to go to Texas, I called her and she said, oh, this is great pioneer territory. Come on out. So I came, and she would call me a pioneer because she said I was really willing to take a risk and to step out and try something. And I noticed that even in the formation work, as the full-time pre-admissions director, I really was able to create the job in some way. When I went to the parish work in Phoenix, I created the job coordinator of volunteers. When I got to Austin, I created the worship office tasks and jobs. When I got to Tucson, I was able to create the process of ministry.
Oh,
and
wow.
For me, that was the Spirit nudging and pushing. And not that I'm an overly creative person, but I could see that I didn't always have to follow a plan someone else put together, but I would see what are the needs of the area and how can we expand them or address them more directly. Mm-hmm. And, the cultures are different in each location. You have to be sensitive to who the people are and what really enlivens them in their faith.
Well, being a church woman, a woman of liturgy and all of that, the pandemic has certainly touched your life and your ministry. And can you just share a little of that? Just a little.
Well, when the pandemic hit, it was March 18th. That was a year ago. That was our last day in the office. And my present boss, Bishop Weisenberger, said, Sister, could you prepare a set of prayers of the faithful for me? Because I'm going to start recording masses from home. And I said, oh, sure. So the first set of prayers I prepared were for the Feast of St. Joseph, March 19th of 2020. And then I was preparing prayers of the faithful for him because he televised Mass from his home when we closed all the churches. But for me, the pandemic, it really threw me off in trying to celebrate the liturgy and sacraments and doing the faith formation. We had the Deacon class of 2021, so they still met monthly for their formation sessions, the Deacon and Lay Ministry class. And I thought, how do we do this without people in the room, And I'd always been opposed to the technology and doing online learning for pastoral ministry. I said, you have to be with the people and find out what's going on. So I would say that the pandemic really threw me into disarray, I would say. We had to cut back our finances and staff at the diocese, and it left me with feelings of grief and loss and even some anger, which surprised me because I usually takes a lot for me to get angry. So I thought, wow. But what I realized is that the uncertainty was like an agonizing feeling that the pandemic brought. You never knew when it was going to end, what was going to happen next. And so it really brought on a huge learning curve. Then I was able to look at the virtual learning options and the technology. And in May, we were supposed to have a retreat for our formation people. And I said, instead of a retreat, we're going to do a day of prayer on Zoom. I didn't know what I was talking about, but here we are living on Zoom. And everybody showed up. I was like, oh, okay, this might work. And I had them read some stuff ahead of time, and I figured out how to put them into little discussion groups. And so we were able to, it seemed like the Holy Spirit or somebody put the tools in my hand that could pull us together for as long as we needed to be. And obviously it's been a year. However, the uncertainty tunnel has a little bit of light in it now. And we're looking at ways that the technology can be our friend and work with it. However,
do you have mass? Do you have a mass, a virtual mass every Sunday?
Well, the parishes are able to have the churches open.
Oh, okay.
And see, that was for me the confusion. I said, watching Mass on TV isn't the celebration of the sacrament. I mean, my liturgical studies kicked in and said, this isn't the real thing, you know. So we were out of church. We were Mass online until May, almost till the Feast of the Ascension. So all of the Easter, the Triduum, all of the major celebrations, as we know, were online. And, you know, we kept in touch with the liturgy. That was the important thing. But to really be with the people celebrating was, for me, a big loss. So once we were able to open the churches and participate even in a minimal way, it really began to restore a little bit of my hope and strength for this.
So as we look back at all our significant events that's happened in our lifetime, this pandemic certainly is something that was very unique, and we each have a different story to tell about it. So thank you for sharing that about you.
Yeah.
Is there something about you or some little thing that continues to be hidden, just briefly, that we'd say, oh, no, she's not, she doesn't do that. She doesn't think that way, or what?
Well, I would mention two things. One is I love to travel. And since the year 1998, I have had a few opportunities to travel overseas in Europe.
Wonderful.
And also in the Holy Land. I have done 2 trips to the Holy Land and 1 trip to what was called Turkey and Rome. We did the footsteps of Peter and Paul.
Oh my.
So those pilgrimages. And I did a beautiful musical pilgrimage around the islands of the Greek islands. We were the Corinthian choir. Sister Joyce Lavoie was my comadre on that trip.
Nice.
So I love to travel. And I've always been excited about learning new things about new places. But I also love to do needlepoint.
Oh.
And when life gets a little unended, you know, you're starting more projects than you're finishing. It's like, will we ever draw any conclusion to anything? I took up the needlework because when I started a needlework project, you could finish it and you could say, okay, that's done. Whereas some of the pastoral work and some of the people work doesn't get done as quickly. You can't bring the closure as much. So I love to do the needlepoint, and I have several lovely finished projects lining one of my walls. And however, some of them take longer than shorter to finish. So I'm working on one that And I'm disciplining myself not to start another one till I finish this one.
Very good, very good. So is there anything else that you'd like to share that I know I gave you a set of questions and we never get to all the questions, but that you're upset now because I didn't ask you?
No. I would say one of the things that I'm looking forward to do is finish the work I started with my Doctor of Ministry project. The topic that I studied was the formation of deacon wives during the formation period. I had worked with deacon programs over the years and as an instructor and then director here in Tucson, and the wives were required to be present, but the most part they were silent spectators. But they had so much to bring to the ministry of their husbands and to the church. And so I said, let's do a project that would offer them a formation program just for them. It wasn't the academics that they needed, but it was more, what are the tools they might need to support their husbands and grow in their own faith as in ministry if they wished. There was not much research out there. Deacon wives, not much in the Catholic Church at all, but so it was a unique project, and my directors at the school were pretty impressed when I started it. So the title of the project is The Formation of Deacon Wives as Companions in Ministry and Companions in Marriage and Co-workers in Ministry. And so I have that curriculum, which I have used with my cohorts here in Tucson. But I think the Holy Spirit is nudging me to write the handbook that I can give to other program directors. So that's what I'm going to try to look forward to. Yeah.
I just want to make note the fact that you were Sister Pauline Joseph, and that was your mother and dad's name?
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I say that because there are people that have asked us, they don't know the sisters as Sister Lois. They know them as their nun names.
Right.
So we like to include that in the sister story. So
sure, absolutely. And may I tell a little joke about that?
Yeah.
When we had to offer our suggested names as novices, my mother said, now you know, I don't like my name, Pauline, so don't put that in there. I said, okay, Mom, no problem. So I said to Sister Margaret Phillip, here are my two choices. Could I have my own name, Sister Mary Lois?
Yeah.
Or could I combine my father and mother and be Sister Jolene? Well, Sister Margaret Phillip, she was like, oh, yeah. Sister Margaret Phillip was like, well, so I only gave her two options. So I didn't know what my name was going to be until profession day, when I was, you shall henceforth be called Sister Mary Pauline Joseph of the Gate of Heaven. Wherever that came from, I don't know. So when I told my mother, I knew she wasn't going to be happy, but that was the name. And so we lived with it. Well, every letter she wrote to me, dear Sister Pauline Joseph, she never called me Lois after that.
Oh, God, isn't that funny? Well, listen, we'll play that song, Jolene, at your funeral.
Yeah, do that. Yeah. Well, and then someone in the crowd was named Mary Lois. So that was.
Yeah, we had some Loises. So anyway, our time is up, but I'll get you on the next round. Okay. Tell the rest of your story. But thank you ever so much, Lois. This is
you're very welcome.
Our part of our congregation history. So Absolutely. It's very significant. But we keep saying we want to get to know each other better. And this is a great way to do it. So again, God bless you and thank you ever so much for all that you are about and all the people whose lives you touch and whose lives have touched you.
Well, it's been a blessing beyond words. Thank you. Okay, God bless.